Welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about what seems to be a controversial topic, catch cans. I'm going to jump right in and say that there is a lot of misinformation that circulates about catch cans. Like most things I'm going to talk about on this channel, people get very black and white about this mod. The main argument these days on the forums is that you don't need one unless you have a direct injection engine. While those engines will certainly benefit the most, there is a benefit on other engines as well. Anyone familiar with Nissan, specifically the VQ series engine, knows that this engine line is notorious for blow-by, especially as the engine ages. This was especially bad in the early VQ35s. I had to have two catch cans on my 2003 Maxima, a can at both ends of the PCV system because blow-by was so bad. When I got my first Frontier in 2016, I decided to add a can to measure how bad it was on that engine. I ended up collecting 3.5 to 4 ounces of oil every 5,000 miles every oil change. Is that significant? No, I wouldn't say that it is. It's not enough to cause visible smoke from the exhaust or anything like that, but I would say that it is above normal. With that said, all engines do have some level of blow-by. It's just that the VQs are more prone to it. There may be more than one reason for that amount of blow-by, but the consensus on these engines is that it is related to the internal EGR design being the main culprit. It isn't until I picked up my 27 Frontier that I inevitably pulled the lower intake manifold and inspected the heads. So with people arguing that the injectors clean the valves, there is truth to that. But again, it's not that black and white. So I took some images of a couple of intake valves. You can clearly see where the fuel makes contact, but it's a small area. Outside of that area, it's clear that the oil residue buildup is occurring. In one image, you can see this directly behind the valve. What this means is that oil is still contaminating the entire intake tract from the top down to the heads, and that oil is getting mixed in with the fuel. With the heat of the engine over time, this will leave residue and could cause problems. As long as the amount of blow-by remains low, it's fine. It's part of what's expected with age on an engine. But if blow-by increases, it can certainly start gumming things up and cause valves not to seal properly, damage oxygen sensors, damage catalytic converters, and reduce fuel octane, which would result in power loss if the engine has to retard timing to avoid spark knock. So when I removed my lower intake manifold, it took a significant amount of time to scrub off all the oil residue that was like a thick tar all along the walls of the intake. And on the VQ40, there is also a Vice valve in the manifold and swirl valves inside the lower intake. As these get gummed up, they are not going to operate as fast and smooth as they should, reducing performance. So is an oil catch can necessary? No. Again, the problems I've mentioned are inevitable with age. However, is there a benefit to running a catch can? Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like if you have high cholesterol, it's not going to do much to hurt you now, but years down the road, there can be significant health complications from it. So a catch can is sort of like taking a cholesterol pill to lower your levels. It helps the engines, sensors, and cats stay healthier longer. It also provides a means to monitor the amount of blow-by you have. One thing I found interesting is that the amount of oil I've collected between oil changes has significantly reduced, actually, easily down to a quarter the amount it was when the engine had lower miles. Why? I believe it has to do with the engine finally breaking in. Post below if you have another reason for that to happen, other thoughts, open to hearing it. So a catch can will add the ability to monitor one aspect of the health of your engine and add some protection to it. Certainly, one negative about it is that it will add a maintenance component to your list. The can will need to be checked and emptied once it's full. The great thing about the ADDW1 is that it has a dipstick on it so that you can quickly check the oil level inside. The ADD unit is costly, but thankfully there is a clone on Amazon you can get for about $26 to $30. Both units are identical and have the ability to be completely taken apart for cleaning. They also offer a small cup that screws underneath the lid on the input side for you to add some copper or aluminum mesh. I do recommend this, as the oil, moisture, and other nastiness that enters the can, most of it is in vapor form. The mesh catches the vapors, slowing the flow down a bit, and collects the oil and moisture so that it forms larger droplets that then fall to the bottom of the can. If you don't do this, it's okay, but you do risk the vapors entering the container portion of the can and then getting pulled on through and out the other side. So without the mesh, you are reducing the effectiveness of the can. And the reason you don't want to use steel is because it can rust, break apart, and get pulled through the system and into the engine. Regardless if it would happen or hurt anything, copper or aluminum are still highly recommended and consistently considered a better option. So now at this point, let's move on to installation. If you have any questions or comments, post them below. Thank you.
Quick little video. People asked about the catch can, how it's hooked up. Pretty simple. This line right here is the one that comes off the intake, runs back to a PCV valve. Not really going to be able to see it here, I don't think. It's going to be too dark. But there's a valve back there. So this is the line that it originally connects to. So what you're doing is basically the one line that went back here, you're eliminating. And so by running the can over here, you're running two lines. And so one line is going to run over, and then it's going to come around, and that's your intake. The other line is going to come over and then drop down and go to the PCV valve. And that's pretty much as complicated as that gets. Now, as far as mounting, this is just one option. Single bolt through there. Bolt and nut, holds it in place. And what I typically do, because it is kind of a tight section here to try and move this and get this can, the bottom of the can unscrewed to empty it, I remove these two Allen heads right here. So still kind of tight, but easy to do. Remove those, can comes up. You can remove the bottom. Everything stays in place. It's connected to the hoses, so it's not going to go very far. Empty the can, clean it out, put it back in, put the Allen heads back in, you're done. Very simple. Very stable. It's not going to go anywhere. So that's a good location for it. Keeps it close. You know, and there's your lines running back through there. Now, I think I've said this before. I do suggest going to the more stock-looking black hoses. You can get that at AutoZone. It comes with, I think, clear hose and these clamps. I just don't like the clear hoses. That's just me. You can go ahead and do that maybe initially, and then go to AutoZone and get these hoses here. Regretfully, I don't remember what size they are, but they ought to be able to match something up if you take these fittings in there and figure out what it is, which fits on the hose the best. Hope that answers your questions.